The breaking point. Commander Sarah Chen sat perfectly still at the enormous obsidian conference table, her face betraying nothing as the HFY representative finished speaking. Inside, her patience, stretched thin over 3 months of peace negotiations, had finally snapped. Therefore, the six-limbed diplomat concluded, his translucent skin pulsing with bioluminescent patterns of superiority. The Galactic Concordat has unanimously decided that while Earth and its colonies may continue their provisional membership, full voting rights will be delayed for a minimum of 75 standard cycles. This period will allow humanity to mature appropriately. Around the circular chamber, representatives from 23 spacefaring civilizations bobbed, nodded, or flashed colors of agreement. Many didn't bother hiding their smug satisfaction. The Vrexians, resembling upright praying mantises, clicked their mandibles in what humans had learned was their equivalent of chuckling. 75 cycles. Dr. Maya Patel, Earth's chief xenobiologist, whispered beside Chen. That's over a century in Earth years. They're patronizing us. Chen gave an imperceptible nod. For 3 months, the human delegation had endured condescension, dismissal, and outright mockery. They'd brought innovative solutions to interstellar trade disputes, offered medical breakthroughs that could benefit multiple species, and demonstrated diplomatic flexibility that put most of the older races to shame. Yet at every turn, they were treated like precocious but ultimately irrelevant children. The Scuda Overlord, a massive gelatinous entity suspended in an anti-gravity field, pulsed with what Chen had come to recognize as pleasure. We understand this may seem restrictive, its translator device conveyed, but humanity's impulsiveness and aggression must be properly contained before you can participate in galactic governance. Your species is barely a millennium into spaceflight. Some members of this Concordat were navigating the stars when your ancestors were discovering fire. That wasn't even historically accurate, Chen noted, but correcting them had proven futile in previous sessions. Beside her, Lieutenant Colonel Jackson's knuckles whitened as he gripped his datapad. The military advisor had advocated for withdrawal weeks ago. "May I address the assembly?" Chen asked, her voice steady and controlled. The HFY representative gestured magnanimously. The human delegate is recognized. Chen stood, scanning the chamber with deliberate slowness. The various alien physiologies displayed their version of attentiveness, some with genuine curiosity, most with barely concealed impatience. The United Earth government and its colonial territories thanked the Concordat for its candid assessment. She paused, letting the translation devices catch up. For the past 91 days, we have presented our credentials, shared our innovations, and demonstrated our commitment to peaceful cooperation. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. The human delegation had indeed showcased impressive technological adaptations and resource management strategies, achievements accomplished in isolation, without the benefit of galactic knowledge bases that other species took for granted. We have been transparent about our military capabilities and defensive protocols, Chen continued. We have submitted to inspections, evaluations, and assessments beyond what any founding member of this Concordat endured. The Vrexian ambassador's antennae twitched nervously. Their intelligence agencies had been particularly surprised by certain aspects of human quantum computing that had developed along entirely different pathways than galactic standard. And yet, Chen's voice hardened slightly. At every juncture, our contributions have been dismissed, our suggestions ignored, and our very presence treated as an inconvenience to be tolerated rather than a partnership to be cultivated. The Scuda Overlord pulsated rapidly, interrupting. Commander Chen, this emotional display only reinforces. I'm not finished. Chen cut in, breaking protocol. A ripple of shocked murmurs circulated. No junior species ever interrupted Scuda. This isn't emotion. This is evaluation of empirical evidence. The Concordat has made its position clear. Now humanity will make ours clear. She pressed a sequence on her datapad. Throughout the chamber, The personal devices of every delegate chimed simultaneously. "What is the meaning of this?" demanded the HFY representative. "What you're receiving," Chen explained calmly, "is the formal withdrawal of Earth and all human-controlled territories from the Galactic Concordat, effective immediately. Additionally, you'll find termination notices for all technological exchange programs, scientific collaborations, resource-sharing agreements, and military cooperation protocols." The chamber erupted in a cacophony of translated protests and exclamations. The Drell ambassador, a reptilian diplomat who had occasionally shown fairness toward humans, rose on his hind legs. "Commander Chen, surely this is an overreaction. Provisional membership still provides humanity with significant benefits and protections." Chen smiled thinly. "Does it? We've analyzed the terms carefully, Ambassador. Humanity provides resources, labor, innovation, and military support to the Concordat. In return, we'd receive limited access to outdated technologies, restrictive trade agreements, and the privilege of being patronized by species that consider a century of second-class status to be generous." She gestured to her delegation, who all stood in unison. "We decline your generous offer." The HFY representative's skin flashed warning patterns. "This is unprecedented. You cannot simply withdraw." "Actually, we can," Dr. Patil interjected, her voice clinical. Section 27.3 of the Provisional Membership Accords clearly states that any provisional member may withdraw with immediate notice if they determine the arrangement no longer serves their interests. "We've determined exactly that." The Vrexian ambassador's translator squawked. "Without Concordat protection, humanity will be vulnerable to countless threats. The next hegemony alone has been watching your expansion with predatory intent." Lieutenant Colonel Jackson finally spoke, his deep voice carrying even without amplification. "We're aware of the threats. We're also confident in our ability to handle them." The implied military readiness sent another wave of unease through the chamber. Several species had privately expressed concern about humanity's rapid adaptation of defensive technologies, even the restricted versions they'd been permitted to access. Chen raised her hand for silence. Surprisingly, it worked. "The decision is made. Human representatives will depart all Concordat facilities within 48 standard hours. Concordat personnel on human worlds will be given the same courtesy. After that, any Concordat presence in human space will be considered unauthorized." The Scuda Overlord's translator struggled to keep up with its rapid pulsations. "This is madness. Your species will collapse without our guidance and support. Within a standard year, you'll return begging for readmission." Chen had already turned toward the exit, her delegation following. At the door, she paused and looked back at the assembly. "I don't think we will," she said quietly. "But I suspect many of you might be surprised how quickly you notice our absence." As the human delegation departed, Project Autonomy, a contingency plan developed in secret over the past 2 months, activated across human space. From Earth to the furthest colonies, humans began executing the most ambitious independent development initiative in their history. The human exodus from Concordat facilities was swift and thorough. Technicians removed human-designed improvements from alien stations. Scientists withdrew from joint research projects, taking their data and innovations with them. Engineers disconnected specialized systems that other species had never bothered to fully understand. On the Concordat Central Station orbiting Proxima Centauri, built largely with human labor, Chief Engineer Raj Kapoor supervised the removal of efficiency upgrades his team had installed throughout the massive structure. "Sir," one of his engineers protested, "these cooling systems are critical. Without them, the station's computing cores will overheat within weeks." Kapoor checked his tablet. "According to the original specifications we were given, these cores should function adequately with the baseline systems. Our upgrades were just beneficial additions." The Mketal supervisor, a crystalline entity that served as the station administrator, vibrated in distress. "You cannot remove these components. They're integrated into the station's infrastructure." "Actually," Kapoor replied, showing the contract on his tablet. They're registered as temporary human enhancements, subject to removal if our arrangement changed. The arrangement has changed. Throughout human space, similar scenes played out. The aliens had never considered how much they'd come to rely on human ingenuity, adaptability, and work ethic. Each modification, improvement, and innovation humans had contributed was carefully documented, and now methodically withdrawn. Admiral Elena Vasquez oversaw the consolidation of human defense forces from her flagship in Earth orbit. Reports streamed in from across the colonies. All Concordat military liaisons have departed Mars Command, her communications officer reported. Luna Base reports the same. We're receiving similar confirmations from Titan, Europa, and all outer colony defensive installations. Vasquez nodded. And the backup servers? Wiped clean, Admiral. No trace of human tactical innovations remains in Concordat systems. She studied the strategic display showing human space, modest compared to the ancient civilizations, but surprisingly robust. Implement Phase 2. I want all military assets realigned according to the autonomy protocol within 72 hours. As the human withdrawal continued, the Concordat authorities oscillated between disbelief, mockery, and growing concern. Emergency sessions convened, where older species reassured each other that humans would quickly learn their mistake. Their agricultural systems depend on our microbial enhancers, the Vrexian agricultural minister insisted. Without them, crop yields will collapse within months. Their defensive grids incorporate our sensor technologies, the Drell military consul added. They'll be blind to threats. The Akthori High Envoy waved a limb dismissively. Let them struggle. When starvation and piracy threaten, they'll return with appropriate humility. But in the privacy of her quarters aboard the human flagship Resilience, Commander Chen reviewed progress reports with growing satisfaction. The faces of Earth's best scientists, engineers, and strategists appeared on her screen one after another, all delivering the same message, ahead of schedule. The agricultural transition is proceeding better than projected, reported Dr. Amara Okafor, lead biotechnologist. We've already synthesized alternatives to their microbial packages, actually, improved versions. The truth is, we'd been adapting their assistance for years because it wasn't optimized for Earth crops anyway. The defensive reconfiguration is 60% complete, General Joe confirmed. We've replaced their sensor arrays with our own designs. Turns out, they were giving us outdated technology anyway. Our systems are actually more sensitive in certain bandwidths. As the reports continued, Shen allowed herself a small smile. The Concordat had never realized a fundamental truth about humanity. They had never stopped innovating, never fully relied on alien technology. Instead, they had studied it, improved it, and prepared for this very possibility. Operation Self-Reliance is proceeding according to plan, she informed Earth's united government that evening. The Concordat believes we'll come crawling back within months. I believe they're in for a significant surprise. The president's response was succinct. Good. Let them underestimate us. It's always worked in our favor. Throughout human space, citizens mobilized with renewed purpose. What the Concordat saw as impulsiveness, humans recognized as adaptability. What aliens labeled as aggression, humanity channeled into determination. The dismissal had awakened something powerful. The very traits that had carried humans from Earth to the stars would now propel them forward, independent and unbound. By the time the first Concordat systems began failing without human maintenance, humanity was already forging a different path among the stars. The revelation. 6 months after the human withdrawal, Grand Architect Anixtvala of the Akthori struggled to maintain composure as she reviewed the latest systems failure reports from across Concordat space. The holographic projections surrounding her displayed a disturbing pattern, critical infrastructure breaking down at an accelerating rate. The central processing networks on the Rigel hub have experienced their third cascading failure this week, her assistant reported. Commerce has been disrupted across 17 systems. Anxvala's skin rippled with patterns of distress. Have the SCIDA maintenance specialists made any progress? Minimal. They've stabilized basic functions, but the advanced predictive algorithms that prevented supply chain disruptions aren't responding to standard repair protocols. Were these human systems? She asked, though she already knew the answer. Not officially, but human programmers had enhanced the original Concordat designs. Apparently, they left extensive documentation explaining their modifications, but no one bothered to study it. Anxvala finished. Similar reports have been arriving with alarming frequency. Throughout Concordat space, systems that had functioned flawlessly for years were degrading. In every case, investigation revealed human fingerprints, subtle improvements, workarounds, and optimizations that no one had recognized as essential until they were gone. Meanwhile, in what was now officially designated as the Human Alliance of Independent Worlds, a very different scenario was unfolding. On the Mars Colonial Administration campus, Director Omar Hassan hosted representatives from formerly minor galactic powers, species the Concordat had relegated to the periphery. The hydroponic adaptation is performing beyond expectations, the Tellurian ambassador reported, his feathered crest vibrating with excitement. Our agricultural yields have increased 43% using your modified systems. Hassan nodded, unsurprised. Our engineers found that the standard Concordat agricultural packages were designed for the physiology of founding members. They never bothered optimizing for lesser species. The Palaxian trade minister, a diminutive insectoid being, chittered in agreement. We've discovered the same pattern in manufacturing protocols. Since implementing your efficiency algorithms, our production capacity has nearly doubled. Within months of withdrawal, humanity had approached other marginalized species with a revolutionary proposition: genuine partnership. No patronizing, no artificial restrictions, no hidden technological suppressions. The response had been overwhelming. On Earth, Dr. Maya Patel addressed the Alliance Science Directorate, surrounded by both human researchers and alien collaborators from a dozen worlds. The Concordat's suppression of quantum entanglement communication was never about safety protocols, as they claimed, she explained, displaying comparative schematics. It was about control. By restricting instantaneous communication to their approved channels, they maintained information superiority. She highlighted a new design, a human-developed communication node enhanced with Tellurian crystal technology. Our collaborative approach has already created something better than either of our species could develop alone. And without artificial restrictions, we've achieved in months what the Concordat projected would take decades. Similar breakthroughs emerged across multiple fields. Human medical researchers, freed from Concordat restrictions, partnered with Palaxian biochemists to develop treatments for previously untreatable conditions. Engineers from Earth collaborated with Novan crystalline entities to revolutionize energy storage. What the Concordat had dismissed as human impulsiveness proved to be remarkable creativity when unleashed. Admiral Vasquez's strategic display now showed a very different map. The human alliance had expanded not through conquest, but through partnership. 17 formerly marginalized species had formalized agreements, creating a cooperative network that rivaled the Concordat in resources, if not yet in territory. The defensive grid is fully operational, her tactical officer reported. The integrated sensor network with the Novans has extended our detection range by 300%. Vask studied the display with satisfaction. And the next hegemony probe, intercepted and disabled at the border, as expected. They tested our defenses, found them considerably stronger than anticipated, and have pulled back to reassess. The Concordat had predicted human isolation would leave them vulnerable to threats like the predatory Nyx. Instead, humanity's alliance building had created a defensive network more responsive and adaptable than the ponderous Concordat security apparatus. On the Concordat Central Station, now operating at reduced capacity, an emergency summit convened. Representatives from the founding species gathered, their usual composure notably absent. The situation has become untenable, the SCIDA overlord admitted, its massive form pulsing with stress patterns. Critical systems across Concordat space are functioning at minimal capacity. Trade volume has decreased 18%. Manufacturing efficiency has declined by 23%. The Vrexian Chancellor's mandibles clicked rapidly. We've lost access to 34 resource-rich systems that have aligned with the humans, systems we took for granted. This cannot continue, declared the Drell ambassador, who had privately warned against dismissing humanity months earlier. We must re-establish relations with the human alliance. After hours of debate, a reluctant consensus emerged. The Concordat would send a diplomatic delegation to Earth, offering reconsideration of humanity's status. No one used the word begging, but the implication hung uncomfortably in the air. When the Concordat diplomatic vessel arrived in Earth orbit 3 weeks later, they were not greeted by desperate humans eager for reconciliation. Instead, they found a bustling center of interstellar commerce and innovation. Ships from across the galaxy, many representing species the Concordat had marginalized, moved through well-organized patterns, overseen by an efficient traffic control system that put the Concordats to shame. Commander Sarah Chen, now designated Alliance Diplomatic Director, received the Concordat delegation in a spacious chamber with views of Earth and Luna. The aliens noted with shock that representatives from nearly 20 other species were present, many wearing symbols identifying them as Alliance members. "Welcome to Earth," Chen greeted them formally. "The Alliance appreciates the Concordat's willingness to reopen dialogue." The HFY High Envoy attempted to regain some semblance of superiority. "We have reviewed your situation and are prepared to offer accelerated consideration for full Concordat membership, perhaps within 15 cycles, rather than 75. A ripple of what might have been laughter moved through the alien representatives behind Chen. She merely smiled politely. "That's a generous offer, High Envoy. However, the Alliance isn't seeking Concordat membership." The delegation exchanged confused glances. The Scuda representative pulsed rapidly. "Then what is the purpose of these talks?" Chen gestured to the diverse assembly behind her. "We're here to discuss the terms under which the Concordat might apply for membership in the Human Alliance." The chamber fell silent. The Concordat representatives stared in disbelief. "That's preposterous," the Vrexian Chancellor finally managed. "The Concordat has existed for millennia. We have hundreds of member worlds." "And yet," Chen replied calmly, "you're here because those worlds are experiencing systemic failures you cannot repair. Your economy is contracting. Your influence is diminishing. Meanwhile, the Alliance has established a cooperative network based on genuine exchange and mutual respect." She activated a holographic display showing comparative economic and technological metrics. The trends were undeniable. Concordat decline versus Alliance growth. "This is what happens," Chen continued, "when you mistake age for wisdom and tradition for effectiveness. While you were dismissing us as primitive, we were studying, adapting, and innovating. While you were restricting our access to your technology, we were developing better alternatives." The Drell ambassador, more perceptive than his colleagues, studied the Alliance representatives with new understanding. "You never needed our technology at all, did you? You were reverse engineering it, improving it, even as you were implementing it for us." Chen inclined her head. "Necessity and resourcefulness have always been humanity's strengths. The Concordat gave us just enough access to understand your foundations. Then we built something better." The Scuda Overlord's translator struggled to convey its agitation. "This is unprecedented. The Galactic Order cannot be overturned by upstarts who barely understand." "But we do understand," interrupted Dr. Patel, stepping forward. "We understand that your Galactic Order was designed to preserve power for founding species while exploiting the rest. We understand that your technological restrictions were never about safety, but about control. We understand that your dismissal of younger species cost you the innovation and adaptation you desperately need." The evidence was irrefutable. In just 6 months, the Human Alliance had achieved breakthroughs in multiple fields that the Concordat had declared impossible or centuries away. Their collaborative approach had united species that the Concordat had kept divided and dependent. The Alliance doesn't operate like the Concordat, Chen explained. We don't restrict information flow or artificially suppress development. We don't rank species by age or territory. We value contribution, cooperation, and innovation. She presented a data package to the stunned delegation. These are our terms for Concordat worlds that wish to join the Alliance. Individual planets may apply independently. We don't require your central authority to approve. The implication was clear and devastating. The Concordat could disintegrate as member worlds sought the benefits of Alliance partnership. The high envoy's skin paled to an almost translucent white. You cannot possibly expect the Concordat to subordinate itself to human authority after millennia off. Not human authority, Chen corrected. Alliance governance, which includes equal representation for all member species, something the Concordat never offered to us, or to them. She gestured to the diverse representatives. The Drell ambassador, already calculating the inevitable, leaned forward. And if we decline these terms, then we continue on our separate paths, Chen replied simply. The Alliance will thrive. The Concordat will continue to struggle with systems you can't maintain and problems you can't solve. Eventually, your member worlds will make their own decisions about where their futures lie. As the Concordat delegation departed, visibly shaken, Admiral Vasquez joined Chen at the viewpoint overlooking Earth. Do you think they'll accept? She asked. Chen watched the Concordat vessel until it disappeared into the darkness of space. Some will, some won't. The founding species have too much pride to join immediately. But the second-tier members, they've watched how we've treated our partners. They've seen what genuine cooperation can achieve. She turned to survey the chamber, where Alliance representatives now mingled, exchanging ideas and building connections. The Concordat made a fundamental mistake. They saw our differences as weaknesses to be corrected. They never understood that diversity of biology, of thought, of approach is the greatest strength in the universe. Within a year, the Galactic Order had transformed. The rigid hierarchy of the Concordat had given way to the collaborative network of the Alliance. Worlds that had been resource providers for millennia became innovation partners. Species that had been marginalized for their immaturity contributed perspectives that led to breakthroughs across multiple fields. And humanity, once dismissed as too impulsive, too aggressive, too young, demonstrated the leadership that came not from age, but from vision. They had walked away from a table where they weren't welcome, only to build a better one, where everyone had a seat.